Welcome to Toastmasters. I thought it'd be good to share screen and just take you through the different steps of logging in and using a path. I'm not a demonstration necessarily of an expert speaker here. I'm on level 5, but working through it. And there's lots of things you can learn even after you've completed all the paths. So there's still aspects of your speaking you can work on. I'm going to run through this one at a decent pace because there's a lot to cover, and I don't want to spend on too much time on it. Choosing the path is not really the long step. There's a lot across the platform which can benefit you as a learner and as a speaker as well. So I'm going to start off logging in here from toastmasters.org. It's the international website which everyone uses, and there's a login button at the top of the page. Once you go to the login, your email, you'll either have been sent a password to log in with when you've got your access. For me, I'm just trying to bring up my passwords. I save it in my Norton password storage. So my email and password come into here. I'll log in. If you forgot your password, you can click Forgot Password and put in your email, you get sent out a new one. Or if you can't find the original email. But it often takes a week or two after signing up before you get your access anyway. They should email you when you join or ask your club officers if you haven't received one yet. So there's lots of different options here. Once I've logged in, it's bringing me to me. But if I start off at home, this is where they've got the Toastmasters homepage. Education programs is where you go for you choosing a path. So if I click on the menu at the top for education programs, it's got information about pathways, it's got some speech craft sessions which you can learn and some youth programs. I could either go to my pathways through Basecamp, so this is where all the material is before joining up essentially, but I've already got access to that. So I'm going to scroll down, and when I get down to the bottom there's a choose a path option. And by clicking on the choose a path option, there's also questions and updates and a few videos, but choose a path is where I want to go and where you want to go particularly for when you're joining. In Australia, we'll all choose English as the language. Our Toastmasters programs are in English, even if you've got a native different language. And taking an assessment is good if you're not sure exactly what you want to do. For me, I start off viewing the path options, and it stands out a bit to me about what I really want to learn going across Toastmasters. It is self-adaptive. You can learn different things. So no matter what path you choose and program you go across, you can still learn the same aspects as everything else by choosing things in electives. But there's a little bit more direction towards specific, more speeches to give and topics if you've got it in your path. So by choosing one of these 6, they used to have a lot more. They had about 14, but I like these 6. They cover a lot of different aspects. I try to work humor into each of my speeches anyway. But if we go down, it's not letting me click on it at the moment. Oh, because it's choosing. So I could choose strategic relationships is the one I'm doing. It's not available anymore. I'll show that in a moment. But by choosing the path, they've got a link below each of these 6 paths. Whereas if I was wanting to look at, say, dynamic leadership, I can click on that link and it will give a bit more information about the path, that it helps build your skills as a strategic leader and negotiator and the type of projects that you work through. When I was choosing a path, what I looked at was the projects in this path. I'm going to right click and open it in a new tab so I stay in the same location, but you could just click directly on that. Just have a look at the paths that you've got to choose in the first place. So each pathway has got 5 different levels. They start off a bit more broad in the first level over here. And then from 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, you start getting less projects to work on in the path, but they're more involved. So it's good at the start. I'm not going to promise to know all of what's in these levels. Level 1, I believe, is the same in every path because it's a bit less specific to a topic. The icebreaker is an introduction speech where you learn to write a speech. So it's more about the putting a speech together that you're able to give. And a lot of clubs just let you read it directly off a bit of paper if you like. You don't need to memorize it. It's more practice in how to write and giving a speech rather than exactly how you give it. And it's based on your personal experience. It's often good to do it as an introduction, to give a bit of history or aspect to your own life, unless you choose not to. And clubs are often open to the types of topics that you choose there as well. But I find if you pick something personal, it brings emotion into it and actually delivers a really good speech because it's personally relatable to you. I do forget what writing a speech with purpose is, but I think it is more practicing of writing the speech and that aspects rather than how you deliver it. Where there's aspects focusing on the vocal variety, so the voice up and down and choosing on different emphasizing in different ways, even in the pauses of the speaking, and the body language that gets involved in these speeches as well. In each of these projects, there's an evaluation resource that you'll get for the speeches that you're delivering. And in the evaluation resource, it tells you what the evaluator is going to be giving you feedback on. So it's actually very useful for what tips you want to learn for how you want to be speaking in the speech as well. It might be to do with the structure of the speech or your vocal variety, body language, how engaged the audience is. Have a look at the evaluation resources. They're all similar but not necessarily the same because they're focused towards your particular projects. And in evaluation and feedback, you give a speech with an evaluator. They give you feedback. You have practiced giving an evaluation to someone else, and then you deliver a second speech based on your feedback that you got from the first speech. I think at least. It's been a while since I did mine. And so it's covering a lot of aspects of speaking and writing a speech in this first level. As you move along, I might point towards the one that I'm doing so that I know what I'm talking about. If I also go back to education programs and I'm not choosing a path, I can still just click on the pathways and have a look, which almost takes me to the same page. But looking at the paths and projects, it gives me the existing ones as well. So if I have a look at the strategic relationships one that I'm working on, I've got all of these same first level projects there, which you could see. Then in the second one, it was a bit more focused towards leadership, which strategic relationships was towards, and understanding different cultures, I guess, and relationship building. So understanding the type of leadership style I have was the first one, going through the 8 different types of leadership style, trying to understand yourself and what works best for you. Active listening, so it's listening and giving feedback, but it's more in a responsive nature. And working as a mentor or mentee. You don't need to be involved in each of these projects. Some of it is just relating back to your study or your work life. So it's a bit more broad on the relationship style, but it's got some learning in there as well. Then I did make connections through networking. So I went to a networking event, followed up on connections who I was making, and just relating it back to my experience and giving a speech on it. So there's things involved in each one. And as an elective, I chose to know my sense of humor and give a comedic speech, as well as connecting with my audience. And I taught Spanish for a lesson just to really engage the audience on what they're doing. I developed a public relations strategy, wrote an article for the newsletter at Toastmasters, and it was about how we put our club together. So it was related to what we were doing in our club, CPA Toastmasters in Melbourne. And I built a social media presence with, well, a few different accounts with Instagram and TikTok, and I was putting daily videos up there for really being open with the feedback, which I was trying to connect. It was called Receive Your Present. It wasn't something I wanted to continue. I'm actually doing different social media accounts now, but that was something which I was building for the project. And I'm working on right now, leading in a volunteer organization, which can be Toastmasters if you can't find any others. There's specific goals in that one. And the high performance leadership is bringing my workplace into it, where I'm bringing in a work project and trying to run that with goals. So that's, well, less broad than what I initially said, but they get to different levels as you work through the pathways, and they've got different projects in there. There's people across the club to be able to help you with things if you've got questions. The committee is usually quite helpful. And I know for our club that people are more than happy to help. It is self-driven though. You might get scheduled in the future to do a speech, but it is up to you to be able to put in the time and practice and work through and to ask people to help if you've got any questions. It's not for other people to follow up and make sure that you've got things done. It is a very much self-driven education tool, which is great because you can go at different paces, and some people go very quickly, some are very busy at work and just want to get bits of practice that they're connecting with in different ways as well. Everyone's got their own goals, and this one is more around structured speaking. I'm actually doing a second path at the moment as well, and it's effective coaching. And because structured speaking wasn't what I was wanting to learn as much, I did that in the first pathway, which I've almost finished. In the second one, I'm trying to practice without writing the speech in advance, just having some dot points in my head and learning to speak without having that preparation so that I can become more comfortable with speaking on the spot as well. And I'm speaking in this one without preparation, but I do have a guide in front of me as well. So if I go back to where will we start? So the choosing a path. From here, I will go forward. So this is how you'll pick your path. You'll choose dynamic leadership. Assuming you don't want to do the quiz, you've had a look at each of them and you're... Oh, okay, sorry, the other thing I did show you this, but the paths in the project, you can look at the different ones and just see if they sound good, or perhaps you could even ask someone in your club or do a Google search with what's involved in these projects. Then you can decide if later on you think you might want to do some of these compulsory ones in the path, which are not electives. And that might help with your alignment of what you want to choose as well. That's the approach I took rather than taking the quiz. I actually took it for fun, but it told me similar information as well if you know yourself and what you want to focus on. So I just clicked through, continue. By the way, if you're listening to me, I need to focus more on my vocal variety. That's one of the improvements I've got. So if my voice sounds very similar pitch, it is something I'm trying to learn. By joining, you will have already got a path on your project. It comes with joining Toastmasters, so you won't need to pay for this, at least in Australia. So it will come up and it'll be $0 and you'll just go and submit the $0 payment. That is if you don't want to do the quiz. It's quite simple. You just have a look around, see what you are interested in, and I shouldn't say it's simple because I apologize if it's not. But instead, if I went to the choose a path, and I still speak English, and I wanted to take an assessment to have some suggestions of what I might want to do out of those 6 paths. I think it was a bit more useful when there was 14 paths. With 6, it's a bit more guided. And if I go through there, it's got a fairly long. It might take you 10 minutes to go through answering a number of questions which guide you in a different direction. So I like using humor in speeches, 3 topics. Change management is interesting, and leadership. What brought to Toastmasters? I like to be funny. Learning about something, using humor. And so it's going to ask questions about you and try and direct you in a way of what it thinks you might want to learn. So the quiz can be useful if you're really unsure of where you want to go with the path options and having a look around. So it depends if you want to do all that clicking and searching yourself to try and understand that, or maybe the quiz can just guide you in a direction. And so once you've got that, also back at home or back at Pathways, I think it's at home, let's see, no it's not. In the educational programs at the top, it had access to Basecamp. I always go to this top menu and I just have a look at my home. And my home is different to home, a little confusing, but my home's got a few more things in there. So the Basecamp is where all the learning material is. It's got more education resources, awards and recognition, which don't really get filled out very well all the time. Being on the committee, I've got some club officer materials around the club's performance and the members who are signing up, and a few other things there. But what's really useful if you're doing this online are some of these tools. So if you've got access to a computer while you're in a meeting, in the meeting, or if you're having an online session, there's a meeting tools tab. And in here, most people don't know about these, but I'm going to speak through them anyway. So yes, you've come to a meeting. R counter. R counter is one of the roles for filler words. They've got a script of an introduction of what the R counter could be talking about. But on today's date, if we were having a meeting today, we've got one tomorrow, I could select a member, and then throughout the meeting I could go, they've used once, again, and I could do the counting of some of these words which are not flowing in their general conversation. What you're taught to do is to pause a bit more so that your mind has time to catch up with what you're saying, and then you use less filler words like all the ums I have used during this presentation. The grammarian is here as well. This one often introduces a word which is uncommonly used, and you can write the word of the day which is used here, select a person and tick whether they use the word. In our club we count how many times they use that word, so it's an interesting format, but you could put in comments here if you wanted to use this format. It even has a timer for the different sections, the speeches, the evaluations, and other parts of the meeting that are run. And so there's a start and stop tool here as well. A lot of the meetings can use these tools if someone's bringing a computer along, and it can make things nice and easy, or if it's an online meeting, it could be quite convenient if you want to track things this way. The speech type will be the section of a speech. I expect, yes, so the person might be doing a table topic, which is a 1 to 2 minute reply, but I'll go through the different sections soon. So actually before going into, so I'm in my home and I'll take a little bit of a detour because we've got resources here as well. I won't take too long on resources, but if you're looking for evaluation forms, templates, branding, suggestions, a lot of things are in resource library. Of course, you can search the internet as well. There's a lot out there. And even ChatGPT I find quite useful. It could throw some questions at you or give you suggestions for words of the day or table topic. It's good using your own mind, but if you really get stuck and you've just had a long day at work and you need something, it can help to run the meeting well. Oh, sorry, the brands are here. Going across, it has some public speaking tips. Guides, it's already in your topic, but there are also guides here for preparing a speech and giving introductions, even sales pitches. So there's a lot of suggestions here and resources for things that you might be doing. It's got some tips for running online meetings, if that since that's a newer concept to the club. Same with hybrid meetings, and what I was looking for, I did see earlier, it was the role types in the meetings that I wanted to look at. So we have annual speech contests, and there's the rule book and the marking criteria here as well. I won't go into that right now. Where are the roles? Not there. Public speaking tips, online meetings. I saw this in resources just before coming here. I don't think it was in membership. Surely it was in resources. How-to videos, meeting, online tips. Okay, I don't know why I lost that one. But there's information on the different roles that are in a meeting, and so it can give you scripts. Oh, okay, sorry, it's in membership. I knew I saw it earlier. In membership, there's the club meeting roles. You could also click on my first meeting of what you'll experience, but I think that's more of before you've joined. So the club meeting roles does provide some help if you're taking on a new role in your meeting. The R counter, which I mentioned for the filler words, if I were to open that one up, just in a new tab here, it can give you a script of what to go through in the role, some suggestions for counting. It can give you some learning of how to improve, not when you're doing the role, but to stop using as many filler words. There I was repeating myself. You usually use more filler words when you're very conscious of this role. And you can do different things in the meeting as well, so more than just one role necessarily. So the script I find quite interesting for the roles, especially if it's one you haven't done before, and it can give you some advice on what is actually involved in this role. Because it's fun taking your own version on it. Maybe not the first time, but you don't need to do the role the same way every time, and I encourage people to do it differently and use your creativity to make it fun and different each week. It engages people and keeps them really interested in the different types of meeting, because you don't know what you're going to expect, and so you can't prepare and just be familiar with a similar format. Those are good with table topic questions, so questions where you don't get a chance to prepare the answer for. All right, so that was a membership instead of resources, even though it's somewhat a resource. I'll go back to my home. The one other thing I'll mention before moving into the actual course is at the bottom here, there's Yoodli. So as a member, you get to use this AI tool, which can analyze the speeches you're doing. It can give questions and follow-up questions to you where you can practice. And you don't need a person to give you feedback, because this tool it's doing it for you. I just want to show the interface without explaining how to use it. It connects with the Toastmasters account. You do need to sign up the first time. It's just creating a login. And I have connected before. I've got a few test things here. But if I wanted to practice either a presentation or just table topics, a short question, and I allow that while visiting. Okay, well, it's being used by the recording at the moment, but it will come up. It can give random questions. It will give me feedback on my responses. I wonder actually if I've got that here from a previous one that I've tried. Oh, it's got some different practices about storytelling and not using filler words. Okay. So in this 1 minute presentation, which I could have been practicing, I've no idea what's in this. I was asked a table topic question. If you can make everyone on the earth have the same dream at once, what would it be? I tried to answer that question. You can see it's highlighted the ums here, so it's got a few fillers in the word choice. It's counting my words. It's saying how concise I was and that I was using a bit excessive language, and it explains where. how many times I start a sentence with and, or I don't remember what goes in there, I didn't do it. Repetition, if I was using weak words, so I could have improved the quality of my answer. And delivery and coaching, there's lots of great aspects here. Actually, what is in delivery? My speed, so it's measuring my speed and at different parts. There's some really interesting things you can get from the tool, but that comes with a membership as well. So that is something you can work on yourself, or to practice your speeches in front of the camera and get feedback on your delivery of the speech before you give it in a meeting. They say to practice in front of the mirror. If you want to practice in front of the camera with an AI feedback, then wow, it's a great improvement. So back to my home, and the main thing you probably hear after choosing your pathway after those diversions is the base camp. So it's where the course is. They have changed it recently, so it does look a bit differently. But let's take us through this. I've got a few different things in here. Strategic relationships is my first one, which I was working on. And so that's a pathway which will come up once you've chosen yours. And on the left side, or the top menu, it's got some navigation. It'll likely start off at the overview or level 1. And in each level, it will either have electives for you to choose or a breakdown of your different topics. So it does start off with an icebreaker topic. And it will come up on the full screen and just give you advice on how to fulfill this project, really. And this icebreaker was the introductory speech, which teaches you a format of how to put together a speech, and it's usually personally based, so that you can the speech can be relatable and have that emotion behind it, which takes away a bit of the stress of delivering a speech. There is a lot of stress, I'm sure, if it's your first speech, but it does take away the element of you not knowing what you're talking about because you're talking about yourself. So through this, there's videos and audio which can be played. Once you've finished each section, you can move across. There's another video. It can give you feedback. What did I say here? That's information for the start. And as you go through, and let's say you get to the end, not at the end. This is the first time I've done it, so it assumes it's the first time I've done a project, so it's got a few more things popping up explaining what to do. And it prefers this on a full screen. Not sure if that shows up on a window. Directions, that's why it's not coming down. So I can give before giving the speech and doing the project feedback, and then there'll be an after as well, and it compares at the end on how you feel in the different sections. So I'm just going to go through to the very end and see if the resources come up. Give suggestions of things you can write about and how. So at the end, just before finishing this off, you'll get an evaluation resource. You could print the whole project. It's got outlines and other suggestions. The evaluation resource is the main thing that I use, because you need to give it to the person who's evaluating your speech and giving you feedback on things that you did great and where they might have some suggestions for improvement. And it's a good thing about Toastmasters is being able to get that feedback as well in a really constructive and friendly way generally, so that you're able to improve as well. Yes, it will come up in this browser, so that's good. And this is also what I was talking about earlier with the feedback. This gives the evaluator the purpose of the speech, so they know what to look for. You're filling out the title of your speech, This first one's 4 to 6 minutes. As I said, you can read it off a bit of paper if you like. It's just practice in delivering a speech. And there's a few general comments. But what it does have is different sections. So there's one on clarity, spoken language is clear and easily understood. Vocal variety, really something I need to work on. Eye contact or camera contact if you're online. There's different ways of marking these guides if you're online as opposed to in person. Same with gestures if it's showing up on the video or if it's in person. Awareness of the audience, so how they're reacting to your speech and how you're engaging them, which kind of works with the interest as well. I find it's more constructive content and how well you've put it together and if they find it interesting. And just like nervousness, comfort level of being in front of the audience. And this is done in the way that the numbers are not subjective, because if you go to the next page, it says clarity. Okay. Number 3 is spoken language is clear and easily understood. Number 2, spoken language is somewhat unclear or challenged to understand. It's very clear on what mark to give a lot of these sections. It's the comment which can help. A 2 is not necessarily bad. It just might mean that there's something to work on. Which ones? So number 2 for vocal variety for me. The use of tone, speed and volume requires further practice. Yes, it does. And number 3 is when you're using it as tools. To me, using it as tools seems quite advanced. I mean, it's not. There's higher sections here, but just because you're getting something that's on a lower number doesn't necessarily mean you did something badly. It just means there's room for you to be able to practice it a bit more. So we either email or print these off and give these to the evaluator in or before the meeting so that they're able to provide this back to us and know what they're giving feedback on when we're delivering the speech. But you'll organise that with your Vice President of Education, just the committee member who's running the agenda. Okay, and so you can work through the different levels. That was level 1. If I go along further, high performance leadership has only come into my view because I chose it as an elective. You do get to pick electives. I could have looked at different ones as well. Moderating a panel discussion is potentially one which I'm going to do in a different path, and I have seen someone do it before. It was quite interesting. So once you get up to the different levels, you can choose electives. You don't need to do that straight away. The only thing I'd mention, and I probably shouldn't have clicked off the icebreaker, is once you get to the end of the material, it's not just going to automatically tick it. So to show it's done, to the VP of Education again, to show that it's a completed course, you need to click through to the end. So it says you haven't completed the project yet necessarily. And once you're at the end, you give your thoughts on how you did now. If you, I feel relaxed when giving a speech. Probably not yet after the just giving one. And you'll get to the very end and go back to the overview, which will tick off this section. At the end of each level, you also need to tick off the level, otherwise it doesn't show you're completed. And your club gets evaluated by the district on how levels are completed. So if you completed a full level, it's good to actually go through and get this one ticked off, and the club will check and they need to approve that it's been ticked, I believe. I actually haven't done that role myself, but it's important to them, the club, once you've done a project, that it gets ticked. It helps with their progress and even their performance in the district to show that yes, members are delivering speeches and ticking off projects. Otherwise they might get concerned that there's a club and they're not educating anyone. There's different ways to do that, but this is one of the ways that they measure progress. Happy to receive questions in the comments or directly, because this one's initially going to be for our club, but other clubs might find this video. There's different sections. Maybe I'll do videos on other things. It was just an overview, which was meant to be a little quicker. Went across a lot of different things, and I hope that it was helpful. I am sorry that it's gone for 35 minutes. I'll try and put the times in the description so that you can click and filter through to find the section that you're after. So thank you very much. All the best, and feel free to ask questions because I'm happy to give answers. So, all right, see you.